Hello, and welcome to what can only be described as carnage. If you've just tuned in and you don't know what we are the Circus of Safety. And joining me, as always, Des, how are you today, mate?
Doing very well. How about yourself?
Mate, I've got to be fair, a little bit under the pump, burning the candle at both ends, and got a bit going on. So, but hey, you know what it's like, right? You work for a living, so yeah, it's pretty sure you appreciate it.
Excellent.
Cool, Andy. Great to see you sporting the uniform there, mate. How are things?
Oh, very well, very well. A little bit fatigued. It's been a busy morning. Done
What,
90
ironing a
minutes
shirt?
available. And no, it's good. It's warm though, isn't it? Isn't it warm?
Oh, it's beautiful, right? Beautiful. Bring on summer in old Aotearoa, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that the merchandise is built for such conditions.
Nice.
It's breathable fabrics, and it not only keeps you warm in the winter, but keeps you cool in the summer. So head over to the website and buy some merch.
How is it going? Are we making millions?
We've sold some. We've sold some.
Nice.
We've sold some. There's
Um,
more available, but we've sold
Okay.
some.
Okay. Now, this is a bit awkward. I don't know whether we should be having this conversation here live on air or whether it's something we should keep for the pub later on. But, Des, have you seen any proceeds from said merch sales?
Oh, you took the words out of my mouth. I'm wondering, yeah, we've got all these sales happening. What's going on?
Well, here's hoping it's Andy's shout at the pub later on today, right? Here's hoping. Hey, Andy, mate, sticking with you, how is our young apprentice? How is young Oliver? Anything exciting on his learning radar this week?
He's good this week. The sage shell at school's finally getting constructed, so he's been familiarising himself with the Australia New Zealand standard for steel framing construction.
Nice.
Which again, it was an expensive purchase, but you can't share these standards. You've got to buy them. And I thought, as part of his learning journey, what better thing could I give him as his upcoming birthday present than an Australia New Zealand standard? So happy birthday, Oliver, and hope you enjoy the standard.
Now, this is a little bit awkward, but do you need to step aside and let some highly trained construction professionals step in and guide Oliver through this experience of overseeing a construction project?
Oh, well, the way I see it is I've played with a lot of Lego over the years, and it's just really a big Lego set.
That's why you're a consultant, right? Because it's all so easy. All so easy, isn't it, right? He wouldn't have a clue what it is.
Not at all. Not at all.
Hey, now just talking about things, I'll tell you what. It was really this. Like we kind of, to be fair, we did it this week. Bonus episode of the Learning Teams episode, season 2, episode 20 was our last episode, and we landed on Learning Teams. What a great bonus episode! Brent Sutton, what a star, right?
Yeah, there's a good buzz in that episode. It was good. He was a good guest.
Nice. Cool. Well, hey team, listen, we got the pub to get to. We actually genuinely do. So Des, do you want to hit us up with the disclaimer, mate? Let's get into it, eh?
Well, look, yes, absolutely. And on the back of the last show with Brent Sutton, I like to think I can read people pretty well. And
Yes.
and I got the sense there was a lot of mutual respect and admiration and camaraderie with Brent and the Circus of Safety. And I thought, well, why not reach out to Brent to get him to do our guest disclaimer?
Great idea.
He's very kindly done a recording, which I forwarded straight to you, Brent. So is that ready to roll?
Oh, mate, listen, am I ready to roll? I haven't heard it, so listen. But based on like all that great stuff you just said about him, I'm sure it was a phenomenal disclaimer. Are we ready for it?
Let's do it.
Bring it on.
This is Brent Sutton. Many of you may know me as a safety practitioner, also the author of a series of books from Learning Teams, the 4Ds to the Hop Beginner Guides, and also podcast host on the Hop into Action series. Recently, I was invited onto the podcast of the Circus of Safety. It's only later that I found that the whole thing was a bit of a catfish. I was lured with the promise of money and fame.
What?
Well, I got to tell you, I quickly took the bait. I clicked yes to the consent process and appeared on the show. Many of you will now question my professional judgment. But in the true wisdom of Hop, you're going to realise that blame fixes nothing and error is normal and context drives behaviour. For me to be released from this obligation, I have negotiated and I'm now required to provide you with a recording introducing this show. But before I do that, let me just share some things about these three individuals. First of all, Andy, I've known you for a long time, and if you are being held kidnapped, please blink on this podcast, and I'll organise the authorities to do it. Brenton, the show. And I got two questions for you. One is, what age does a health and safety professional need to be when they finally leave home? Stop maxing out the card, paying for patrons for your podcast show. You should really dress yourself rather than going to a thrift store specialising in product from Gloria Bar. And lastly, mate, I can see that you are the intellectual powerhouse of this, particularly with the law degree. But I've got to share with you, I've seen more intellectual property than an electronic go stop sign on a one-way street. But for me to be released in this, I now have to read the following. Welcome to the Circus of Safety, where the chaos is real and the expertise is questionable. The views here are solely those of the host, who balance on the higher wire of skepticism while juggling bad jokes. This is entertainment, well, barely. Not professional advice, because I don't know what it is, and any resemblance to common sense is purely accidental. Yep, do an RSA on that one. By listening, you agree to laugh, cringe, and take nothing too seriously, or maybe some anti-anxiety meds. So now sit back and enjoy the show at your own risk. Hopefully, I get released from this bullshit. Thank you.
Oh my God. Andy,
I'm blinking.
This is all on you. You and your bribery and all you consultants are the same, including him. Honestly, wow. Des, did you check that out before you forwarded it to me?
No, look, I trusted Brent, and it's backfired.
I don't see how it's backfired. It seems to be he's a very astute consultant.
Well, Des, I think we're going to have to revalidate your LinkedIn profile where you've got reading people as a skill set.
Yeah.
We might need to revoke that that statement. Well, okay. Well, I actually don't quite know what to say, but we're never having him back. Let's get on with it, eh? Shall we bring up the spinning wheel? We're running out of things to talk about, guys. So
bring it up.
There we go. Look at that. We're down to, what is it? Six things. Are we ready? So generally a question requires a response, team.
I'm ready.
Are the dark arts a real thing in safety? Well, I know I'm excited about this topic. Let's go over to the talkative one. Des, are the dark arts a real thing in safety? I mean, you must be ecstatic with this one coming up on the wheel. Thoughts, comments, concerns?
Ecstatic. Yeah, I'm so excited. I think I'm going to burst. Are the dark arts a real thing in safety? I don't know. I don't even know what that's talking about. I didn't put the topic up. I don't know.
I did. I'm going to take this one. This is my topic. I am super excited about it. Andy, how excited are you about this topic? Are the dark arts a real thing in safety?
I'm intrigued, excited, bursting with anticipation, and looking forward to you defining the terms before we start.
I hope you've got 40 minutes worth of material, Brent, because we're going to be stuck.
Well, we could just go to the pub. No, well, listen. Okay, so I'm not going to do an Andy, and I'm not going to define anything. Well, I'll give a little bit of context to where this came from. In my mind, there's sort of two ways to do safety, right? there's the straight up the middle. The law says this, you must do this, kind of quite bullshit, up the guts kind of scenario, where, I don't know, maybe safety people are feared, not revered, and it's quite direct, right? And to the point. And then I think there's the other way to approach safety. And again, I guess as in with all things that we talk about on this on the show, it's a little bit about context, and it's not always one way or the other way, and it's another tool in your toolbox. But then there's what I refer to as the dark arts. Now, the dark arts are the bits around the influencing, the planting the seeds, the having the conversations, the laying out the information, the making people aware of things, letting them make the decisions for themselves, but in such a way that you get what you know is the best outcome. So dabbling in the dark arts, manipulation of people, effectively, is what I'm talking about. So does that help you, Des, kind of maybe have something to talk about for once on the show?
I think it does. My thoughts automatically jumped to the idea that a safety person has to be across all aspects of the business and familiar with the needs of all the stakeholders. And so that means to some extent, you need to be everything to everyone.
Yep.
And that means you need to completely adapt your communication style, your way of presenting information to each different party in a different way.
I'm reading from a script. Wow. Paul Shaw, you are on my non-Christmas card list as well. You and Brent Sutton. So I've actually got a non-Christmas card list. Like, most people have a Christmas card list. Like, who do they send Christmas? I got a non-Christmas card list. Anyway,
that makes no sense. That makes no sense whatsoever.
What, that I mean?
How many?
Well, maybe
how many people have you got on your non-Christmas cards? I mean, how many Christmas cards do you send? Your list would be like 6 billion.
I don't send anybody Christmas cards. I've just got.
So why have a list? So you don't send any Christmas. You don't have any. What? You don't. So you don't send Christmas cards, but you've got a list of people you don't send Christmas cards to. Well, you have everybody in the world. That's a list 6 billion long. Why?
No, actually, I'm backing off. I've just taken Paul Shaw off the list because I've just realised what he meant by this. I finally caught it on. What he's saying is I'm so well articulated and I'm so well spoken that surely I can only be speaking from a script. I'm sure that's what he means. No, exactly, Des. And it was interesting. I dived into a webinar recently, and I'd accidentally forgotten I'd already attended a webinar, the same webinar, in a different forum. Clearly, I wasn't paying attention the first time, so it was probably good to go back the second time. But like most people say they're like a goldfish with a memory. I'm more like a cocker spaniel, where I kind of race off and check the next big shiny thing. Anyway, Craig Merritt, he was delivering a presentation around the IOD Good Governance Guide, the recently released book. And he spoke about that. It was interesting you brought that up, Des, because one of the statements that they're talking about when they're talking about governance was this ability to, if as a safety professional you want to sit at the board table, you want to be part of that place. You can't just go in only knowing your slice of the pie, right? So knowing other avenues of the business. And I was actually talking about that today with a group of individuals. So I definitely think that's part of the dark arts, understanding other parts of the business so that you can, that when you say one thing, the reaction you're going to get somewhere else, or when you go to implement something, the potential consequences somewhere else. I think that's a huge part of it. And that's part of the dark arts, right? Not being isolated to our own little niche, if you will. Andy, after my beautifully intellectual description of the dark arts, thoughts, comments, concerns?
Concerns that you call what I would call effective management the dark arts. That's a little bit troubling. And secondly, I think implicit in what you're saying, it ties in very much with ethics in terms of when you talk about manipulation of people. You're really having a conversation about, does the means justify the end? And I think that's something we've touched on before. but manipulation of people is fundamental. What I guess a lot of teaching and facilitation is all about. But I don't think it's really the dark arts, is it? It's just how we get through life, isn't it? It's just management.
Well, I'm trying to bring it. I'm trying to bring it into light, right? Where we don't hide behind this thing and acknowledging that is something we do, right? Because I think all too often we go in with your health and safety cape on, right? Your undies on the outside, and you go charging in there trying to put this thing on a pedestal and making it this big bright thing, and often that gets people's backs up, right? And so I find if you go in and you start having, like, you're talking about their world and how things apply in their world, and you're manipulating the situation, aren't you? You're understanding what's important to them, and you're making the conversation about that. And it seems to be something that maybe not a lot of people are doing, and they think people should just do what we tell them to do because we say so, and it's safety, right?
Yeah, I agree with. I think I agree with what you're saying there, but it highlights that point that we've talked about many times about what is safety and what is the role of a safety person. And I think Matthew's put it really nicely there. It's having an understanding of wider business operations, really the dark arts. Agree with that. Isn't safety just part of work, and therefore meaning you need to communicate with the wider subset of people? Absolutely. It's that engagement. And in some respects, as a safety person, you're really a salesperson. You're trying to sell an idea, sell a concept. And the reason that historically, if super safety man with his underpants on the outside of his trousers goes in, well, that's a bit irritating, because you've got someone that's a safety person going in and lecturing possibly a manager or a supervisor effectively how to manage. And that doesn't go down well. And why would it?
No, exactly. Don't disagree at all. Des, I mean, any further enlightening statements from you following some of those great comments from Andy?
Yeah, so we talk about what is safety and what is the work of a safety person, but I think in practice, a safety person in an organization gets thrust into different areas just because no one else knows who to give it to. And whenever people are presented with a problem, they're just like, oh, I don't know what to do with this. I'll just give it to the safety guy. And that's, in my career, that's seen me rehoming lizards to the lizard farms. It's seen me releasing turtles out into the ocean.
Oh,
I've
cool,
been
man.
attending doctor's appointments with people. I've been, managing drug testing and, arranging security to get rid of someone that's high on meth. And this is all in the course of, a week that all this random stuff's happening. And, maybe I mentioned before, you got to be all things to all people. And I just think in the absence of a clear definition of what safety is, you just kind of end up touching all parts of the business. And maybe there is a bit of a dark art in doing that well. Maybe there is.
Because I guess it's about building relationships a little bit, right? So a lot of those things that you're probably doing, and this is kind of what I refer to, and why I refer to it as the dark arts. Whether you realize you're doing it or not, I guess is kind of where I'm going with it. Like all those things you do, the rehoming of the turtles, the lizards, the sitting in the doctor's rooms with the worker, the engaging security for somebody that's high on meth. You're doing it to scratch backs, right? Somebody's come to you and asked for help, and you're subliminally or knowingly agreeing to support and help with that stuff, which doesn't necessarily sit in your role, because that potentially it's going to help you down the line a little bit. Scratching backs per se. Would you say I'm maybe barking up the wrong tree there, Des, or do you think do you think that could make a little bit of sense?
Look, in some cases, yes, but in other cases, no. I think there's just no one else in the organization whose job description fits that more closely than yours. I don't know how to say it better than that, but they've got no one else to turn to, basically. That is in a position to manage that.
So,
well, isn't that just a symptom of bad organizational structures and risk management at an organizational level?
Well, it's pretty seldom I see rehoming lizards in an organization's management plan.
But from a safety
you can't predict.
From a safety perspective,
can't predict everything.
Are you competent to do that?
Well, maybe he's a part-time gecko.
Well, I guess that's what part of what I'm saying is you get thrust into these areas whether you're competent to do it or not, because you're in a slightly better position than everyone else to handle it. And a lot of criticism is leveled at safety people for trying to be, mental health experts and psychosocial experts, as well as safety experts and every other type of expert. And maybe I think some recognition needs to be made that you just thrust into these situations where you need to make quick decisions and take quick action. You can't sit back and wait for an expert to turn up. You need to act.
So what my interpretation of that then is that what you're saying then is that really the transferable skill that safety people have, other than having loads of time on their hands to pick up lizards, etc., is sound understanding of and the application of risk management. So because we're really comfortable with risk management, we should be put in any sort of novel situation, and we should be able to do it better than somebody in the same situation that isn't necessarily an expert in that field, but we can approach more dynamic situations better because of our understanding of risk.
Yeah, so I think we're starting to probably go off what my initial intentions were, and I think we possibly even landed on a whole nother topic here about not so much the role of the health and safety professional, but the gap. Maybe the topic is more along the gaps that health and safety people generally fulfill. Again, Matthew Sagrove on fire, and I think he's really kind of bringing us back in line here. So you're all establishing that work is diverse. Don't disagree. I think that's where we're going. Is then the dark arts getting desperate parts of the parts of the business to communicate by either introduction, establishment of better internal relationships. So Matthew's kind of bringing me back to what I was kind of trying to imply about the dark arts of safety. So so we're about making connections, right? We're that influencer. It's the influencing skills that we use. It's the and I'm going to use the word manipulation. I don't know how else to describe it because it is the manipulation, right? Like, so if I walked into a boardroom and said, "You shall do this," I mean, what kind of response do you think that's going to incite? Whereas if I go in and kind of provide a whole bunch of information and I kind of talk them through the scenario and I help them understand the process, and that's what I'm referring to as the dark arts versus walking in there and telling them, "Thou shall do this," and because I said so, as opposed to that manipulation facilitation piece, which is what we touched on, I guess, around the learning teams. So I don't quite know what my question is, but I mean, in terms of engaging a response out of people and engaging a response that I guess, regardless of whether it's a response that we want or a response that we just need a response, what do you think the better approach would be, Andy? Or is it situational when "I shall do this," or you go in and you do the manipulation and the facilitation?
It depends on the audience, and that's one of the skills of facilitators, to understand the room. I always like to provide information in an accessible way, and then allow whoever it is to make the decision, because that's sort of that higher level of thinking, rather than me imposing my views, my biases on people. And if I come from a purely safety perspective, then my driver is safety. Yep. Once you're on the board, then your driver isn't just safety; it's legislative obligations, financial obligations, keeping the cash flow coming. So, by presenting the information from a safety perspective, then that allows them to put that into the calculations to allow them to make a decision whether it's acceptable, tolerable, or whatever terminology they choose to use. Yeah,
no, definitely. And I guess maybe I'm referring to, and then this is maybe where I guess it's great to have these conversations. I often, we know this for a fact. I often put stuff on the wheel and in anger, right? Like, I often get riled up by a situation. Des is nodding furiously there, and I chuck it up. And maybe what I am referring to is that whole facilitation piece, right? Like, so as safety professionals, we should be facilitating things, and we'll get better outcomes and better results in the event that we use those soft skills, or the dark arts, I guess, as I'll refer to them, to achieve outcomes, right? Now, whether, I guess, the fascinating thing and the interesting thing that I struggle with, well, not struggle with, I shouldn't say that's the wrong word. So the interesting thing that I come across is when you talk to safety people, and the focus for them is not so much the journey or the process or the facilitation or the decision-making experience that's important. It's the outcome, and it has to be a very specific outcome that they want to achieve. And you see a lot of safety people getting frustrated that the board or the leadership or the worker didn't do or didn't get to the outcome that they expected. And I guess my wonder is the dark arts a better way to do it, whereby it's not about the outcome, it's about the process to get there. Regardless of whether they go A or B, at least they've made an informed decision with the information that they need, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think you make... Sorry, Andy, you go.
I think that's a very, very valid point. As a safety person, you've got to certainly understand your sphere of influence and what you beat yourself up over or not. So if you've presented the ideas, the concepts, the information to a board to the best of your ability, and then you don't get the outcome that you think is the right one, that's not on you. You should judge your performance on what you've got influence over. And you've got very little influence over a decision that's been made by 8 people that have got 18 different pressures on them. Your judgment as a safety person should be: have I presented this in the best way, and not beat yourself up over that other factors are more important. I think that's very important as a professional, is understanding what you've got influence over and what you haven't. Ironically, we sort of often scoff at success performance criteria, like TRIFRs and that sort of thing. But often we don't apply it to ourselves, and we get frustrated because the outcome wasn't what we desired. But that's just our outcome from our perspective, when really actually our outcome should be we successfully presented it to the board.
Des, you were trying to jump in there before Andy spoke over you and put you down.
I had a few thoughts and potentially some unresolved trauma, but the thoughts that I had was maybe being everything to everyone and being presented with all these different situations is a result of having become a trusted advisor within the organization, someone that people turn to when they don't know where else to turn. And maybe that's the dark art, is establishing that trust and building those relationships to become that trusted person. And so when you return to your desk and you see a large brown cardboard box unmarked on your desk, and you open it up and there's a 3-foot racehorse goanna staring up at you, after you've pooped your pants, you can sit there and consider the fact that they've trusted you as a trusted advisor to deal with the situation.
That would be one approach to it. That wouldn't necessarily be my reaction.
Because yes, that did actually happen.
I'm absolutely done. Sorry.
It's interesting that it's interesting that I think it says a lot about you, Des, that you interpreted that as somebody trusting you. I would have interpreted that quite differently.
We all work through trauma differently, don't we?
We certainly do. And there's 3 examples of it on screen now.
Des. Sorry. I think I can't see my screen. I'm crying.
There's a 3-foot goanna on my desk. That means somebody must trust me. That's stunning. That is absolutely stunning. You two are insane.
Oh my god. Okay, sorry. I need to compose myself. So Matthew's starting to cotton on to what I've been trying to talk about, and I guess so the dark arts, right? And he's apparently paraphrasing you, Andy. I think he's getting you and me confused about saying some good things, but you did rabbit on for a while there, and he's kind of summarized it for everyone by saying if you provide information like planting a seed, there's enough. That's enough, right? How the seedling grows is completely context specific and out of your control. Now, I'm gonna kind of throw. Oh, what have I done there? And maybe this is Keith. Maybe H&S has set itself up in a silo and is now trying to justify its existence without knowledge of areas asked about. And again,
absolutely, Keith. Absolutely, 100% agree with that.
Some great samples there, but just referring back to Matthew's kind of comments about planting the seeds, I want to challenge and I want to suggest that maybe we can plant the seed and maybe we can manipulate how it grows. And that's probably the analogy that's really going to help me maybe contextualize what I'm trying to talk about when I talk about the dark arts. So if we nurture that seed, if we plant the seed and we nurture it and we feed it and we talk to it and we care for it, we can actually influence the way that seed grows and what transpires out of that, right? And my wife does it all the time, mate. She feeds plants ice. She puts them in sunny spots. She moves them around the house. And that's all about the dark arts of manipulating what she wants out of that plant. And I guess that's where I'm going with this is, do we think we can do that? And is it something we can do in safety? And is it a tool that we can use in safety to help an organization on its journey? And should we be doing it? I guess that's another whole question altogether, right? Should we be doing it? Andy?
I think we have to do it to an extent, but again, like Matthew said, it's very much around context. It's okay putting ice on your plant, but what if you've got no ice? It's okay putting a fan on the plant to cool it down, but what if there's no electricity to power the fan? It's all that sort of stuff. So it's useful in saying we can have some influence, but I think we've got to be very, very realistic on how much influence we've got. And we do tend to have more influence at certain times, ideally after an accident, when you are listened to for a while. But then I had a very interesting conversation this morning about an incident that had happened. And, it was the first time that it ever happened, and they were amazed that it could have happened. But once you do a bit of a Google or go on YouTube, I found at least the 60 events of it happening on film.
Thank God for TikTok. Des, I'm going to throw a concept at you, basing off Matthew's concept. I'm going to suggest that maybe manipulating the in safety or using the dark arts to achieve what we want to achieve is not about planting a plant. It's about planting a forest and shaping that forest and planting the seeds where we need to for the end result to be a large forest or plantation. Thoughts on that, and whether we can, if we took that approach, we can effectively long-term manipulate the outcomes for the organisation and the people in that organisation for better outcomes in relation to their safety.
Yeah, without a doubt, I think that's a fairly logical conclusion to come to. I think, though, that we're not necessarily talking about the skills of a safety practitioner or person. We're talking about personal attributes of an individual. And there's a great book by a fellow called Rich Tierney, an ex-Navy SEAL, called The Attributes, where he discusses how you can have all the skills in the world, but if you don't have the personal attributes to exercise those skills within an organization, you're not going to be as successful. And I suspect that's maybe what we're talking about here is your ability to build confidence and trust in others, to be resilient, to be persistent. Those are things that are attributes and not skills.
Yeah, great. And I guess Matthew's, we're starting to head down this road of it's not the power of one. It's not about one plant or one seed. It's about planting and nurturing a number of things, right? And I guess I refer to that as the dark arts only because people can't necessarily see what you're doing, it's quite funny. I often have conversations with my youngest child, and he's like, "Oh, Dad doesn't really do anything for work," and it's because I'm constantly nurturing a whole bunch of different things, and I've got a whole bunch of different things up in the air, and manipulating a whole bunch of situations where I can influence. And I guess that's the other word for it. Probably the more cohesive word for most normal people would be influence. Is something we do in this game, right?
Yeah, totally.
Oh, definitely. Influence is a big part of it.
So I'm actually going to suggest, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. It came up as we were talking about it. I'm gonna change my LinkedIn profile, and I'm not going to call myself a health and safety professional, but more a health and safety wizard. I mean, do you think that'll catch on? Do you think that'll cotton on, Andy?
Health and safety wizard,
or a wizard?
Yeah, I reckon that's a go. I reckon that's a go.
Yeah, cool, nice. Des, your thoughts? I mean, I mean, I guess you can't be. You got health and safety professionals, health and safety practitioners, and then you've got a health and safety wizard. I mean, do you think there's room for such a subset of professionals?
Maybe if you get to call yourself a safety wizard, I get to call myself a lizard wizard.
Don't get me, mate. Do not get me started again. I think if I start again, I think that's the show done. But yeah, well, I mean, really interesting conversation. I guess I guess I just wonder, in terms of sort of wrapping it up, and I guess where I was effectively going with this, I just wonder how much we underappreciate our ability to influence. And I guess that's the word I've landed on in the normal English dictionary to describe the dark arts. Do we appreciate how much we can influence to achieve outcomes versus throw the book at people? And that's, I think after this conversation, I definitely am hard set on the fact that I think influencing to achieve outcomes is definitely a skill set we need to have in our toolbox. It's definitely something that needs to be used. And again, as always, it's about context, right? And knowing when to apply that tool. Des, any sort of final thoughts for you on wrapping it up now that I've introduced the word like influence into the mix?
I've always maintained that to be good in a safety role within an organization, you need to establish relationships and build trust and build influence. And in the absence of that, you're not going to be effective at all. It doesn't matter how well qualified you are, how accurate the information you're presenting is, how good your PowerPoint slides are. None of that means anything. And if you don't have that trust, those relationships and that influence.
No, fantastic. And I guess I guess maybe that's why I call it the dark arts, right? Because it's not necessarily stuff that you outright see people doing, right? It's all those things behind the scenes that are happening. Andy, your final thoughts as we wrap up the show?
I think it's interesting that I think it quite closely ties in with lots of other shows that we've talked about, and also particularly Brent last week and Hop and learning teams. It's that whole thing of getting people on board, sowing the seed, showing things can improve. And it also ties very closely with that whole concept of engagement, which Matthew touched on there.
No, fantastic. Well, I think that kind of brings us to the end of the topic specifically. And I mean, looking forward, Andy, anything exciting for you coming up in the next couple of weeks?
Oh, in the next hour and a half, I'm going to the pub and having a beer.
Whoop, whoop. Who are you going to the pub and having a beer with?
Oh, just this bloke called Brenton.
Whoop, whoop. And Des. Don't forget Des.
Is Des coming along?
Des is coming along. Don't forget.
Sorry, Des. And Des as well.
Nice. Yeah, Friday here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and I'm looking forward to hitting the pub. Des, Des, what about you, mate? Over the next couple of weeks, anything exciting?
Not particularly, no. I think it's just a quiet couple of weeks to catch up on everything.
Fantastic.
So, but he is, just to be clear, he is coming to the pub with us, but he's not excited about it. That's all I'm picking up from that.
Well, Andy, listen, I'll tell you what, I'm excited about coming to the pub with you. I'm also excited about going to Pearl Jam tonight, so that's going to be a cracker. Big weekend with stuff happening on Saturday, but then, yeah, hopefully, like Des, kind of falling into a little bit of catching up on things during the week. So as we sort of wrap it up again, listen, thanks to our live audience. I really appreciate your flexibility around timing. and accommodating my last minute meetings that I had to attend this morning. So thank you for that. And again, listen, we have clocked over the $1,500 mark in terms of followers. So thank you to all of you. And our latest follower. Now, this is going to be really awkward. I noticed she's a LinkedIn Premium subscriber, which means she's going to see that I'm stalking her. So hopefully this is not offensive. But Charnit Kerr, I believe. Oh, sorry, Rahi. Apologies for that. Charnit Rahi she's an operations director from Advanced Diagnostics New Zealand, based down in Wellington, I believe. So she was our latest follower when we last checked. So no doubt, hopefully going to get something really positive out of today's show, and welcome to the team. Andy, you mentioned the merch again. So where about can people find merch?
Go on the Circus of Safety website.
Oh,
and there is a truly bewildering array of merch available, ideal for Christmas gifts and the like.
Fantastic. Now, a little bit awkward. Des and I have both stepped up and done the mahi on this show again by working with our team at Sign On Site to deliver some engaging webinars. Now, are you involved at all in this, Andy?
Yes. I've been approached to try and I can't remember what the phrase was, but rescue the reputation of the Circus of Safety. I think that was a phrase that was used.
Wow.
So I'm speaking to them in early December.
Fantastic.
And I'm very much looking forward to it.
Now, brilliant. Another little plug too, coming up early in December, I will be rounding out my 2-year internship with INGPO, which is the International Network of Occupational Safety and Health Professionals, by delivering a webinar to a global audience, fingers crossed, hopefully people will tune in, on coaching and mentoring and how you can apply that concept in the world of safety. So some exciting stuff here, team. So no doubt I've been deploying my techniques of coaching and mentoring on the two of you, and I'm sure you. I mean, look at Des. I mean, he's saying more than one word now. Clearly, what I'm doing was working.
Yep.
Des.
Can we wrap up? I've got to go. Someone's trusted me with an unmarked brown cardboard box.
Okay, well, till the next time, it's been nothing but a blast, gentlemen. Looking forward to catching up at the pub shortly. And to the rest of you, we'll see you in a fortnight.
Thank you. See ya.
Yep.